Hey everyone, JoeSolo here. In this video series, we'll be going over how I made my Space Ghost model. You will get a solid breakdown of everything I did from concept all the way through to completion. This video is going to be broken down into parts and released over the next 6 to 8 weeks. Please remember to like and subscribe, and let's go ahead and jump into the making of Space Ghost Part 1. Before we jump into the tutorial, let's go ahead and take a look at my peer ref board. Before I started anything, I went and gathered as much reference as I could for what it is I wanted to do. I wanted a sort of Alex Ross feel to the piece, so I got some Alex Ross Space Ghost reference. I found a couple modelers, one of them Nick Hanzo, who did this Batman. And I found another of the Superman that were done in kind of the style I was going for. Found some images of Space Ghost. I also took the images of Superman, made them black and white, and upped the contrast to see how the artist handled painting dirt and whatnot into the clothing. I got some just body reference, just some general things to help me along. Alright, so what I did was I took this base image by Nick Hanzo and I used it as a base to prove out what it is I was thinking in my head. I had this idea of making Space Ghost and have him look serious, not like a joke like he is on Space Ghost Coast to Coast. You know, I always imagine Space Ghost as, you know, like a classic superhero like any other superhero. I wanted to give that kind of feeling to him when you looked at the 3D model. This model by Nick Hanzo had all the elements that I wanted in it. It was based on an Alex Ross painting. It looked like an Alex Ross painting come to life. So it's really just Alex Ross and Alex Ross. And it just overall had the kind of gravitas I was looking for. So I just used it as a base image and thought to myself, if I paint over this to look kind of like Space Ghost, will I get the feel that I'm looking for? So that's really all I did here. And I feel that when you look at the end result painting, it does in fact give you a really cool Space Ghost vibe. Now, I went with something a bit more classic than this in the end. My Space Ghost is also not quite as jacked as Batman. I felt I had enough with this image to prove that the idea in my head would look correct in 3D. I really encourage taking the time to do a step like this to sort of prove out or previz what it is you're trying to make, or, you know, to go and get a concept already. It's going to make your life easier when you know that what it is you want to make in your head is going to work out in 3D. Now, after I made this concept, I took my base mesh that I got off 3D Scan Store and I made a quick pose rig. I just wanted to get something in 3D in the base pose I was looking to get from my base mesh, to get an idea of just how much thicker and how much I needed to change the proportions for Space Ghost. So when I put the base mesh into this pose, it looked heroic, but for lack of better expression, he didn't look beefy enough. But this gave me something to work off of and to use as reference for where I needed to push things. Here I just had to adjust the head a little bit. He was looking up. I just wanted him to look down. You can see I have my posed base mesh in there just to give me a reference point for what it is I needed to change. In general, I don't change too much. I just try and follow sort of the Marvel proportions, which is mostly just making the legs a little bit longer and the hands a little bit bigger, and pulling the shoulders out a little bit, which you'll see me do here. I try to adjust my base mesh evenly so I don't destroy the anatomy that's already there. I wanted to pull the arms out just a little bit. That A pose is a bit too far down. Here you're gonna see me block in a quick cape using the dynamics tools. I end up going into Marvelous for the final cape. You can see I'm just trying to get something quick and dirty for the cape in there. In the blockout stage, you just want clean shapes that represent what it is you want in the final. It doesn't need to be perfect. Here's the drop. Then I go in and I start blocking out the rest of the costume. I want to get the mask in there. I build the mask off of his face. I'm just using Z Remesher to make most of these shapes right now. I need to hide the ears. I'm going with a cowl, sort of like Michael Keaton's Batman. It's not going to be cloth. I'm just starting to get that blocked in. There's going to be white eye coverings because you can't see Space Ghost pupils. I imagine those are made out of some sort of like smoked glass or like smoked lens material. So I just got something blocked in there. Now, I personally am not a fan that Space Ghost sort of wears a giant sock over his body. So I felt adding, you know, those undies and boots helped ground him a little bit better in the mythos of superheroes in general. I felt he feels better in real life with just a few more pieces added on to him. I think so. I went ahead and added those pieces. Now I am going through and I am adjusting the anatomy. You know, the base mesh isn't perfect and it isn't quite the comic proportions that I want. So you're gonna see me build that all up. Pulling out the shoulders, huge traps. And you're gonna see, I just sort of bounce around the mesh from place to place, trying to hit everything at once and trying to get everything blocked in as quickly as possible. I do try and account for every element in this blockout. It's just so much easier when you can go through and start modeling and replacing elements as opposed to realizing towards the end you forgot to model a couple of pieces. You never want to lose momentum, so you always want to follow the same sort of steps, and you always want to block everything in, even if it's just a shape that represents another shape early on. Getting that belt in there. And I'm just using the standard ZBrush tools. Right now we're not doing anything fancy. Just move, knife tool, clip curve brush, move brush, move brush, move brush. Move brush is probably 90% of my workflow. That's what it feels like sometimes. I'm gonna do some sculpting on the face. I want that solid superhero chin. And you can see it's real kind of crude right now. It doesn't look like the final render, but it also sort of does in a way. You know, all the elements are there. That's all we want, is we want to just get all the elements in there. I'm getting his gauntlets in there. Before I do that, I want to adjust the anatomy a bit though. And right there, I used the clip curve brush to just give myself a flatter plane for the top of the wrist. It's just, it was a little ambiguous there. I just made it a little bit clearer for myself. And then I used the clipping brush to adjust my mesh at different angles to make sure it looks proper from all different angles. So you'll see me in there and go in and just sort of take the clipping brush against something silhouette and refine that silhouette. It's really handy actually. If something's coming out at a weird angle, just take the clipping brush and clip it away. Blocking in the boots. I'm just, you know, masking and extracting. Trying to get those triceps and that elbow to pop. I know we're gonna see his elbow like a little bit in the final pose, and I just want like a nice crisp angle. You can see Space Ghost is starting to feel nice and filled out now. And I'm trying to be subtle with the anatomy because I'm not really sculpting a naked body. I'm sculpting a suit with a I'm sculpting somebody under a spandex suit. So I want some of the muscles to disappear a little bit. The way they would if you were wearing a suit. You know, you're not just gonna see everything just like watertight. Just using Z remesher to help remesh these things and refining. I use the deformation inflate there to pop the wrists out a little bit, the wrist gauntlets out a little bit further. And right now I'm just making sure that the gauntlets are the way I want. So that way when I start moving forward with them, they're a solid base shape. This ends part 1 of the making of Space Ghost. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for part 2. Until next time, peace.